Episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, we are continuing the coverage of Madeline Kingsbury. Madeline went missing and just mysteriously had disappeared. But here's the problem for the ex. They were both known to have dropped the kids off that morning that she disappeared. Ex-boyfriend and her. Obviously, it did not look good for that person. Lo and behold, her body has now, it looks to be found. They have not actually said it was her just yet, but the matching clothing that everyone knew that she had at that time literally was that same thing. It was like, hey, that's what she was wearing the day that she disappeared. So that's why it is believed that it is definitely Madeline. And I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Some people say Madeline. Some people say Madeline. I'm more familiar with Madeline. I don't know her personally, so it's a little hard. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize to the family very much. But Winona Police Department Chief Tom Williams, he said that the couple returned to their home after dropping the children off at the daycare at 8:15 Central Standard Time that morning. And so Chief Tom Williams, he said that Kingsbury's husband, we're not too sure, I think it's more boyfriend, but Kingsbury was saying that he went in his wife's van at approximately 10 a.m. and came back later to discover that Kingsbury had disappeared. So he was seen inside her van before everyone's like, where is Madeline? Right? And so, everyone was already thinking he had to have something to do with it. How does she disappear right after dropping the kids off? So the mother of two, that day, she missed all her calls from friends and relatives on that day of March 31st, in addition to not showing up to work that day. And so those who knew her best, they were like very alarmed by the fact that she failed to pick up her 2 and 5-year-old children from daycare later that afternoon. They said that this was extremely out of character for the 26-year-old to do something like this. We are worried. And so the police chief said that between 10 a.m. and 1:30 on that same day, a van that matched the description of Madeline Kingsbury's 2014 dark blue Chrysler Town and Country minivan was on the road. It had been seen. It was seen in Winona County on County Road 12 and Highway 43, but it was clear who was in the car. And according to officials, the car stayed at that home starting at 1:30 p.m. And so police, they were continuing to, consider all the circumstances surrounding the mother of two's disappearance, and they believed that it was involuntary and suspicious that she would have disappeared just like that. And so Chief Williams, he said at that time, that conference call, that nothing to date had indicated that Maddie left the residence on foot or in another vehicle. Her jacket, wallet, and ID that Madeline Kingsbury had been wearing the day of her disappearance were also discovered by investigators at the couple's home. Now, Chief Williams, he explained that based on that investigation, we know that the children were dropped off at the daycare and the van returned home. The investigation, it was still open and ongoing as to what happened after they returned home. Again, Madeline and her ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, but it looks to be more ex-boyfriend. We're going to still find out more because her last name is Kingsbury. So I don't know if they're divorced or whatever, but it looks to be an ex-boyfriend. And now human remains have been found on the side of a highway in the hunt for the missing Minnesota mom, Madeline Kingsbury. And at the same time, the father of her 2 children is arrested on what they believe to be murder by him. Adam Fravel, He was taken into custody and booked for suspicion of second-degree murder, and that is according to the charges that were listed on the Winona County Detention Center website in reference to Adam Fravel. And so Adam, as we know, was the very last person to see her alive. And so once they find the remains, he was taken into custody right away. I bet you they had eyes on this guy the whole time. And so they were able to verify her by the clothing that she was wearing. And police said that they found human remains in Mabel, Minnesota, where they were using information that was generated during the Madeline Kingsbury investigation. And so because of this, law enforcement personnel, they arrested Adam Fravel on probable cause and connection to her disappearance. Now, they are having a press conference today, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that's when they're going to shed more light on this. But why wait till then to share with you? And it's still a very sad day because we know Madeline will not be returning. But now the family can start leaning towards closure. But let's be real. Who didn't have their fingers pointed to Adam? Because come on, you both were seen dropping the kids off. You both get back. She's never seen again. So there were no signs of any light that this guy might not know more. But thanks to this man's special prosecutor, Phil Prokopowicz, I don't know how to pronounce that, he comes out of retirement to investigate her disappearance. That's because he's like, this is a weird thing. We want to know exactly what's going on with this girl, right? And so he comes out of retirement to investigate her disappearance. Now, he had been called arguably one of the best in the business, and he has been assisting Winona County law enforcement. That's what Madeline's sister has shared. Now, Madeline's sister, Megan Kingsbury, she said, we don't have a ton of details right now as far as what specifically he is looking into, as the immediate concern is the custody trial. But this gentleman, he retired in 2019 from the Dakota County Law Enforcement Agency, and his recruitment came as Kingsbury's family maneuvered a messy custody battle with Fravel. Right now, her kids are with Kingsbury's parents. Now, Fravel, he's the father of the Minnesota woman's children, and he was the last person to see her alive on the morning of March 31st, 2023. This past April, through the help of his attorney, he releases a statement proclaiming his innocence. Adam, he's the one saying, I am innocent of this. I did nothing wrong. But we all know how that goes, right? You don't really do nothing wrong until they actually get all the burden of proof on you and you have nothing else to go by. But he did release a statement through the help of his attorney stating, I have nothing to do with this. I am innocent. He said at the time, over the course of the last 12 days, my family and I have been subject to a myriad of accusations regarding the disappearance of the mother of my children, Maddie Kingsbury. During these last 12 days, I have cooperated with law enforcement at every turn, including sitting down for multiple interviews with Winona County law enforcement. He says, I did not have anything to do with Maddie's disappearance. I want the mother of my 5-year-old and 2-year-old to be found and brought home safely. I want that more than anything. He went on to say that law enforcement had advised him not to attend press conferences or assist in searches due to safety concerns. However, my non-attendance and silence has been inferred by many as a sign of apathy or worse, he continued. That could not be further from the truth. I want Maddie home and for her to be able to be with our 2 children. God bless the Kingsbury family and please bring her home safely. Now, the Kingsbury family released a statement at the time saying, nothing in life prepares you for this. Nothing in life prepares you for this. The disappearance of our daughter and sister has been a waking nightmare with no respite. That's what the Kingsbury family has shared, and they continued in the days and nights since Madeline disappeared. The immediate family and extended family have collectively and individually been experiencing emotions and trials that someone who has never been suddenly thrust into the horrific situation could ever imagine. And so they were doing everything they can because they wanted justice and they wanted to figure out what happened. How could she possibly just disappear? And so the family, they spoke of the mental toll losing their loved one had been having on them. They say, eating is a mechanical act we force ourselves to do in order to keep our strength up so we can continue to advocate and search for Madeline. Sleep, if it comes, is fitful and fleeting. I have to think that the only thing that could come close to what we experience is the stress of combat, day after awful day. Initially, we were so overwrought that we couldn't bear to look at each other but couldn't bear to look away. There were no words we could say to comfort each other, and we felt alone and frantic. In the days since the family has circled the wagons and gathered from near and across the world, we will find Madeline. This is our mission, and we will not falter. The family said being thrust in the national limelight during a traumatic time was only made worse by having little to no detail about Kingsbury's whereabouts. Members of our family and close friends coordinate closely with law enforcement and send out search teams day after day, every day. That's what they shared in the statement. From time to time, and as we see the need, we use social media to encourage and inform the large groups of volunteers helping us search for Madeline. We are overwhelmed by the dedication and tangible expressions of love demonstrated by the huge circle of warriors she unknowingly gathered around her. Her sorority sisters, co-workers at Mayo Clinic, and other places. Fellow students from her days at Winona State, other moms, and her many, many friends, acquaintances, and people whose lives she's touched. They vowed that they will continue to search for Madeline until she is found. And now it looks like she has been found. But my gosh, that statement that Adam gave sickens me to the core to know where we're at right now. And he is the person arrested. Now, let's be real. They found the remains. He is then arrested. If that is the case, or they knew they were about to find the remains and he's arrested right there. More to come on this story as it is a breaking story. But let's think about his cookie cutter response. Was that not cookie cutter? That almost looked like it was prepared by his attorney, read by his attorney. I don't know. I'm going to just say straight up, I do not know if that's the case. But that was a cookie cutter response. Only to come find out now you're arrested for this. You best believe they're going to find DNA of that guy on her. You best believe they already knew he had something to do with this. But you know how this goes. You get one shot to make this all right. If you arrest too soon, that could hurt your case. If you wait too long and things come out, that could hurt your case. You only have one shot to do this right so that he is convicted in the court of law by his peers. But let's stop and talk about his cookie cutter response. That sends me chills now that he's been arrested because she did not deserve this. And I'm sure we all can agree with that. So, you stop and you think, what could possibly come out of today's conference call? And of course, we're going to follow. I don't know that we will be live at that time. It depends on the schedule. But what we will share is that, Madeline Kingsbury's sister, after this break, she is like, the whirlwind is just starting all over again. Because this is almost like phase 2, right? Now we know who may be responsible for this, and now we're going to get justice for our sister. But I really hope they can find a little moment where they can grab some sleep and start realizing that, man, we might be getting justice for our loved one. I know, as someone who is creating the content to get exposure for her story, because this story needs to be out there, Madeline did nothing wrong. Madeline was only starting her life with her 2 beautiful children. Now we have to ask ourselves, what next? But let's be real. Even Megan, her sister, she posted a video statement to TikTok following his arrest. And she says, finally, he's been arrested. Notice that. They already knew he had something to do with this. She continues, the whirlwind is just starting all over again. This is definitely a silver lining. We are glad that he's in custody and he's not walking around as a free man anymore. Megan, she says that she's not ready to say a lot more, and that the family is waiting on more information, more details to come. You see, on June 1st, Kingsbury would have celebrated her 27th birthday. Her family asked people across Winona and across the country to put out blue lights to help light her way home. And her 2 children, they're going to remain with her parents. And again, she's been missing since March of this year. And the 2 kids will remain with Kingsbury's parents at least until a custody case plays out. But who's that going to be between? Right? Because now we know Adam's arrested. And so he's not going to have her. But he didn't have custodial rights anyway. You see, Winona County took custody of the children after her disappearance because Adam, the ex-boyfriend, did not have custodial rights, and the county alleged that the children are in need of protective custody. Let me ask you this, folks. Why didn't they give him custody right? Think about that for a second. They did not give him custody right? That alone is a little like, okay, they were already on to this dude. Is that not as clear as a bell? They were already on to him. And I'm sure that law enforcement was involved in this decision. I would think anyway, because someone had to talk to DCSF and say, hey, we're not going to place them in Adam's custody right now, because I'm assuming right now. But I'm thinking they were thinking about the protection of him, of those kids, and thinking, mom disappeared after dropping them off with their dad. We're not going to put them in custody. I could be wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments in reference to that, right? But I would think they were alert, like, we are not going to let this play out that way. That's my thought on the case, because he didn't have custodial, right? Generally, if he had nothing to do with this, maybe they would have considered that. But why didn't he have custodial rights? What was he thinking that morning? Why? But you know what? This is going to be a long played out process. There's a lot to this. We don't know what the affidavit looks like. We don't know what the charging documents look like. We don't know what they have on Adam. We don't know what surveillance they have. There has to be surveillance. They found her remains. They had to have been following him. And so this is a case that we're going to continue to find out a lot more. But now we do know Adam is arrested in the connection of the disappearance of his ex-girlfriend, Madeline Kingsbury. And so in this case, when he was trying to get custody, Fravel asked for the children to be returned to him. Both sides acknowledge the reason the county does not want the children in his care is that police suspect his involvement in Kingsbury's disappearance, even though he had not been charged at that time. You see, That's what I was sharing. And so that is why it's like, okay, we're not going to give them, because you are a suspect. She just disappeared after being with you. So it was obvious you are the person everyone needs to be on top of in this case, right? And so you can even see where they announced the end of the large organized search for Madeline Kingsbury. Over almost 2,000 people had volunteered for their time to look for her. And they were doing everything they can. They were having a press conference. They were trying to keep this in light. But you can see the search. They were trying to find out what happened. And in a motions hearing on the eve of the child protection trial, Fravel admitted a need for child protection in a move to bring the case to family court. And he had filed for custody there, and Kingsbury's parents, David and Kathy Kingsbury, were expected to do the same, and they did. And they now have custody of the kids. And so, but in that meantime, the poor little two children, they were technically in the custody of Winona County. And David and Kathy Kingsbury were foster parents for them. So they were still with them as foster parents. And so, again, poor little mama Kingsbury, Madeline Kingsbury, she was last seen on March 31st after dropping off the children at daycare while in the company of Adam. And he told investigators that the two of them went up to their apartment before he left to do errands, and when he returned, she was gone. Who in their right mind could possibly believe that anyone's gonna believe that story? Is he new to the true crime world and never heard about who's the first person they're going to suspect? It's always the closest significant other. They always look at that person first to make sure they have nothing to do with it. What was your alibi? Now, Winona Police and the Winona County Sheriff's Office, they had been tight-lipped about potential suspects or theories in Maddie's disappearance, but they were conducting targeted searches in remote parts of Winona and Fillmore counties and running down potential leads. And so now the man arrested over Madeline Kingsbury's disappearance is the ex-partner of the missing Minnesota woman. Now that he's been arrested after police found human remains near a highway just yesterday, June 7th. And this would be June 7th, 6 days after she would have turned 27. Rest in peace, Madeline Kingsbury, taken from this world way too soon. And so they found these remains in a brush off of Highway 43. And even though she has not been formally identified, but the discovery prompted police to detain Adam Taylor Fravel. He is a 29-year-old, the father of her two children. And so he was taken into custody shortly after 7:10 p.m. last night, and he has been charged with second-degree murder. That's according to Winona County records. Now, again, he's denied any involvement in her disappearance, even though she was last seen with him dropping off their children, ages 2 and 5 years old, at a daycare center in Winona, Minnesota. And again, he told investigators that Kingsbury had gone out alone around 10 a.m. on March 31st, and he hadn't heard from her since. But Kingsbury's family told media in April that the couple's relationship had broken down, but they were still living together while Kingsbury looked for a new home. Now, again, I told you how he issues this crazy statement, but no one was believing that. Now, the department, it was sharing a lot about this because, even Winona Police Department, they even shared on their Facebook that a Fillmore County deputy found human remains on Wednesday afternoon north of Mabel, Minnesota. The body was found in some brush off of Highway 43, and it was located using information generated during the Madeline Kingsbury investigation. What could that be? Now think about that. That's a big telling thing, because this would be something that they were doing. Maybe it's a phone, right? Maybe it's his phone. Maybe because her phone was at home, maybe it was his phone and they tracked it. I'm just speculating. What could it be? I don't know what we're going to find out. But as you know, one of the reasons I do this is because I want to play detective. I don't want to be a real detective. I don't want to look at that BLOOD stuff. But I love to see how they come to find the bad guy, like the alleged killer, Adam Taylor Fravel. And so with that being said, let's stop and think about that. Because now they say they already had some stuff. They had something throughout the investigation that led them to follow up, and now we found her and he is arrested. Because that's what they are sharing. Now, he's arrested and we'll find out more. Today is the press conference at 1 p.m. So it was also shared that law enforcement personnel, they arrested him on probable cause in connection to her disappearance. The medical examiners were working as quickly as possible to positively identify the remains. There's a good chance, again, we're all sure it's her, but of course, they have to play it out. If I find out I'm wrong, you best believe I will be coming on here and correcting myself in an embarrassing way. But let's be real. Why would they find remains with the same clothing that she was wearing? Nothing else would add up, right? So I'm running with that, and it is what it is. So the department said we are asking the community to respect the family's privacy at this time and not to speculate on the case until further information is made available. But let's be real. You've heard what Megan said. You've heard what they said. Now, in Seattle, police have charged a man with murder in the case of a woman who went missing on the same day as Kingsbury. Letitia Martinez was last seen that same day on March 31st at a Mariners baseball game. You've probably heard of that. Her body was discovered on April 12th. Brett Gitchell, again, the last person who was seen, he had just met her too. He had been with her at this Seattle Mariners game. He was later arrested on suspicion of her murder and the attempted kidnapping of her son who escaped. Of course, he's denied these charges, but let's be real. It's not looking good for him either, right? Pictured here is Madeline. And, you know, the bottom line is we just want justice for Madeline. And so I'm glad that authorities have announced this major break in this case. It came through last night and I was like, yes, justice can finally begin. But, you know, as the sister shares, now the whole whirlwind begins again. It all comes back. Justice for Maddie Kingsbury. That's all that matters in this case. And now it looks like we can possibly start getting some justice for Maddie Kingsbury. Rest in peace, Madison. Taken from this world way too soon. My friends, it's reasons like this I do this show. Who would have thought? But let's be real. We all speculated. We all had ideas. But we couldn't do anything or say anything. Nothing. I can't do a show and blame someone that has not been arrested. It's not right. Now I can, because nothing else adds up. And I'm running with that. My friends, be careful. Be alert. Be safe. Use this as another learning lesson as to what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. Have a great one. Peace.